there's always an optimistic perspective to things because no matter what's going on in the cosmos, things are always changing, right? The planets are always moving. The planet is always shifting, right? The Tao is always moving, like there's always flow in this universe, I feel like. And yeah, that's a very optimistic view of things, I feel like.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay, so you want to offer your take on that?
I don't know. Well, what other things did you want to talk about? Do you have other questions that you asked ChatGPT that you wanted to talk about?
Oh, well, today I only talked about this with the ChatGPT. Oh yeah,
You did that today?
yeah, yeah. Okay. All right. So another thing, actually, I talked about the ChatGPT. So it seems like ChatGPT, when you, doesn't matter what kind of topic that you talk to ChatGPT, it always goes into at the end, like the conversation, he will always, kind of conclude to that science, this and that, science, this and that. Okay. So I challenge the ChatGPT. So I basically saying is that, that I asked the ChatGPT, what's the definition of science, right? And then, it said that, science is about, proving within certain range, of this and that. So I say, well, there it is, right? Is actually when it comes to about life, about, of this existence, that you can't really have, like a range of things because it's interconnected, interrelated with so many things. So that is why is that, that the Eastern, view about life or about the reality or about the existence, has actually is taking a top-down approach, and it's basically saying is that, there's so much change and everything, coming into play, and a lot of the things really is not, any kind of concept or anything can contain it, So I was just saying is that in this way, questions about life and question about this existence, about consciousness, according to the definition that you just given about the science, then it's not within the range of discussion of science.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So,
mean that makes a lot of sense what you're saying. Yeah.
mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah,
not.
yeah. So, well, tell us a little bit about astrology. Why that you have interest in that, and why do you feel for somebody, to learn a little bit about their astrology can actually help them moving on of their life easier and better and, more fruitful?
So I think that, first of all, I got into astrology because I was interested in learning more about myself. I was very stuck at the time and I wanted to know how to proceed. So I kind of dove into a wide variety of maps of life, astrology included, and I just started learning about them and I started, loving the parameters that they give to my life. And when I started to see that in terms of other people's lives, that helped me make sense of people and of their souls and what they're doing in this world and understanding the difference between, another person and me or two other people. That all really helped me better be more compassionate with people and better understand that there's just so much going on in this world. There are so many different types of people, there are so many different things going on, things that people are moving through that they may not even know about. I think that was very cool to me, and so I continued to study it. But in terms of benefiting other people's lives, I would firstly say, you're not required to be interested in things like that. But at the same time, if you enjoy uh, being able to see yourself from a different perspective and sort of having more of a map in life, then that can be really a really helpful tool. And that's all it is. That's all that those things are, right? They're just maps. They're maps for understanding your life and understanding how to better formulate your life around what's happening in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Another thing I noticed is when you had a conversation with my friends that who you never met before, and from astrology, you were able to actually seeing, for example, around what age that, they're probably going through a divorce, which that you don't know these people at all, first time that you met them. And then also, some other difficult, like for example, somebody at a young age, that actually had a very, very difficult childhood. And actually, like, for example, the specific person as actually, the father died very, very young. And then, the mother remarried and they have like, the two family together had 6 kids and it was very, very difficult. But you saw all of that. And then also another thing is that it seems like you saw that there were certain perspective that they are more kind of like in a way of is that too much focus on, or let's say there's grasping, like somebody could be with money, and then the money becomes the biggest thing in their life, in many ways actually is that it hinders of their growth as a whole person, and or even actually making money more difficult for them. And so basically that's how I don't really know about astrology, but that's what I saw that when you met my friends, and that's how I learned a little bit about it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like you can see a lot of things in somebody's chart. But at the same time, like, I don't know. I trained in other things, right? I trained in body reading. I trained in I was very interested in reading people and psychology. And so uh, as you start to get to know somebody and, the chart really maps out kind of what role the world, like the universe is taking, like what kind of lessons they're going to sort of put around you, you can sort of determine what kind of perspective the person most likely has. You can sort of determine what kind of, all that energy that's shifting around that one topic, right, is most likely going to affect a person a lot. And so you can sort of see a lot of very specific things, but at the same time, I think the most beneficial thing to reading somebody's chart is really being able to see that overall perspective that's going to sort of be there for their whole life, right? That sort of overarching lesson, and that you can get really wide about, or you can get really narrow about, like the money thing, or, really wide about and sort of understand like maybe there's a little bit of trauma that's kind of sticking in the back of your mind that you can work through. But everything in astrology, right? There's nothing that's set. So like everything is work withable, right? Like talk about free will, everything you can work through in your mind, you can work through in your body, you can really grow yourself. And I think that's where astrology was really valuable to me, is you get to learn kind of the things that might be a little hard on you, and you get to pay attention and see what comes up in your body when you ask yourself questions around that stuff.
Uh-huh. So I'm actually going to ask you a very basic question, is that, so basically is that just because of the date that you were born, how at that moment the stars and all of that, the energies are lining up at that moment. So you are saying is that that has an overall, effect actually throughout your life, because there's ways that how that they move, and that's why that when the stars change, when the cosmos change, and they actually kind of like has that chart, kind of like an overall, around you throughout your life.
Yeah, so you have your birth chart, which is where all the planets are and everything in the cosmos is at the moment of your birth. And that chart will continue with you throughout your life. So, the planets now, they're obviously in a different position, but they're always interacting with the things that are in your original chart when you're born, right? So it's like, I almost like to think about it like, all of that energy that's going on is really, it's affecting you at a cellular level, right? It's affecting you. That's your birth chart essentially, is like you just distilled down to that one point in time, in the universe, right? So all those planets, depending on how strongly they're interacting, in what way they're interacting with your planets at birth, that's really the energy that you're talking about when you're talking about, transits that are going on now, uh, things that are happening in your life. That's all that's happening.
It sounds to me it's very, very scientific. So it's kind of like, sounds to me it's like, that people studied this and then, they studied of the patterns and, the ways that how that is in parallel, moving along throughout your life. And then they uses that. So it's kind of very similar to like Taoist practice, they have all of these like, like modality, different, ways of trying to engage with the cosmos, especially the Taoist. And it seems to me, they are very, very scientific.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds scientific, but at the same time, like when an astrologer, like it depends on the astrologer, right? On their view of the planets and their view of the transits and what's happening in order to sort of tell you what's going on, because that's where it becomes less scientific, right? Because some planets may act in, the way we describe them are almost you're personifying the planets and you're personifying what's going on, right? So that's where we lose the more pattern like stuff. But that's, that's where you kind of you pick and choose who your astrologer is, right? And what they believe in.
I see. So it does have a lot to do with, how good the reader is. I see.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I learned a lot